My father prioritized his new family over me and ruined my childhood. Now he desperately wants to move in with me because I made him homeless. I've had a rocky relationship with my parents my entire life. My father married my stepmother in 2000. I was an only child up until this point. She had 4 children from a previous marriage. In the early days of their marriage, she was pretty toxic to me and to my dad's side of the family. Instead of letting relationships between everyone happen organically, she tried to force them. When my parents divorced, my dad was allotted 42 days in the summer, and every other weekend. He often would abandon me to be with her family. Things would be taken from me and distributed to her children, etc. He would always try to buy me off with gifts to make up for hurt feelings. I often felt like I was on the back burner. I spent that time with my grandparents instead. My grandparents decided to lend me their house when I was 9 because of this. So I'd always have a home when they died. That's always been a sticking point for my father. He would say things like, "That was such an irresponsible thing to do of them, to deed property to a child." It didn't settle well because he has still made comments within the last few years to other people. My stepmother got into an altercation in 2007 where she shoved my grandfather in his front yard to the ground. I was 15 at the time. We didn't see my grandparents for 8 months after that, and that was after his stroke. Every time my dad would pull some nonsense or defend his wife's actions, my grandmother would be petty and change the will, slowly keeping land from him for when they pass. We laid my grandmother to rest at the end of last year. The way the deed was made, it transfers to me immediately at her death. My dad doesn't know I have seen the will. I chose not to say anything to have the upper hand. One of my step-siblings has already asked me to deed the house to my dad and stepmother in private. It's all so fresh and I find it incredibly distasteful to reach out to me when we are still going over the process of settling an estate which is now a lifetime trust. Someone had to have given her my number, as I changed it 2 years back and was very selective about who had the new number. Her children would often ask us for money and it got tiring. I felt used after a while. My dad stayed at my grandparents' house during the week of the funeral. He's been taking things out of the home for years. Little things here and there like vintage glassware, etc. out of precaution. I have changed the locks and put cameras up, not just to keep them out, but because various caregivers had keys to the home and it's sitting empty for the time being. There's a lot of work that needs to be done but will have to take place this summer. I have no intention of giving him the house. His attitude has changed with me and he won't answer my daughter's calls. It is all very subtle, but enough to cause alarm. I'm afraid he will take it from the sheds, break in, or try to fight me over it. Perhaps he's still grieving or he now knows I've seen the will. It's not like they left him with nothing. He gets stocks and acres, but the way the will is drafted everything he owns goes back to the estate, and to me, not to his wife and her kids when he passes. Update. He and my SM have been living in an RV that is now starting to fall apart. He is retired military and has no savings. Right after the funeral, he stashed his belongings in closets. I discovered this after I changed the locks and added cameras as I live out of state and wanted security for the home before I sell my house and move into my childhood home. I put his stuff and what was owed to him in storage and my uncle gave him the keys. After learning this, he's been furious. My step-siblings keep reaching out telling me I'm heartless for keeping him out of his parents' home. He called crying and I coldly told him if they wanted him to have it they would have left it to him. I also told him he should have treated his parents better when they were alive. I have the deed in my hands and there's nothing left for him to do about it. The estate is almost settled and what land he does get will also have my name on the deed. I would rather share my childhood home with my daughter and all the whimsical things it had to offer, even if my dad ends up homeless. Update 2. Dad then decides to leave evil stepmom and reconcile. Wanted to temporarily move in with us. We said no. He was insisting on helping us move and we ultimately said no. We are essentially estranged and he's never really been a parent to me. He would rather love and bond with my 3 step-sisters and all their children than his only child and grandchild. A week before making the move he did come to Kentucky and leave my stepmom as he had said. How he did it was cowardly. She was doing laundry on their last day in Texas at their RV and he got in her vehicle and split back to Georgia, leaving her without transportation. Her children are angry. Once he got to their RV in Georgia he parked the car, packed his truck up and trailer, and headed to Kentucky. He spent a week here on his property next to my inherited home. He was essentially camping in a small trailer he would haul stuff in for flea markets and gun shows. He asked if he could use my water hose so he could shower and I agreed. I have cameras outside so I thought, what could it hurt? Well, here's where I was wrong. I then get a call from him that water is pouring from under the house. I told him to shut the water off. The house has been having leaks since I took possession as it's got 60-year-old plumbing that will be replaced with the sale of my home. I had my uncle come to confirm and then scheduled a plumber to come look at what needed to be done. This was just 5 days before we would get there with a moving truck from Florida to KY. A pipe had split under the sink and the water heater had busted during the winter. During this time a storm came through and the power went out. He found a key I had in a flower pot for the plumber and went into my home. When we got there he told us he sprayed the yard for ticks, did pest control, and also cleaned and sprayed for pests inside the home. I was livid. I didn't react angrily because at the time it felt weird. I was questioning whether I was wrong and he was actually wanting to be a dad to me after all this time. So I let it go. That illusion has since passed. We've been here since mid-June and now I've discovered he's robbed us blind. He's denied it all of course. The tape had been removed from an old chimney hole, assuming looking for money, and green dishware had been stolen and put on consignment in town and at another local place 40 minutes away. Anytime we have a subcontractor out to give bids on the remodel he just shows up and tries to hijack the situation. He talked to me like I was stupid in front of my husband. That surprisingly didn't go well. My husband is as docile as it comes, but that was the straw that broke his silence in all this. My dad didn't take kindly to my husband telling him he needed to mind his own business and be respectful to his wife. He's now staying at one of his cousins in an RV. He's still moving forward with his plans to put a tiny home on the land that is nestled between me and my uncle. My extended family tends to avoid him like the plague even with his repeated efforts to enter the fold. He showed up to their home on the 4th of July with a lawn chair to see fireworks uninvited and they didn't ask him to leave. Sometime in July, we noticed my dad had messed with the propane heater. It no longer had the pilot light on, and the dial had been moved to 1. which is on the opposite side of the dial as the pilot setting. Either that was incompetence or he was playing with fate with our lives. His granddaughter's life. He of course denied it. I am under the impression we are all in fear of his retaliation. My husband has no such fears and keeps threatening to go into the consignment that has my stolen glassware and making a scene. Honestly, I'm at the point where I'm just going to let my husband deal with him. I'm no longer emotionally exhausted and just annoyed.